Hello, elementary friends. I hope you guys have been having a good week. It's time for our lesson review today. Now, today we learned in our lesson earlier that Moses was instructing the people of Israel about obedience and disobedience, and what happens if you obey, and what happens if you disobey. Now, if you obey God and you keep His commandments, Moses told them that you will receive blessings from God. And if you disobey God's words, then He will bring upon Israel curses. Now, let's talk about these blessings and curses today. First, let's talk about the curses. Now, when I think about curses, I always think of Harry Potter. Expelliarmus! Was that pretty similar? The curses that God had warned Israel about through Moses, they weren't spells and magic wands or anything like that, but they were serious punishments and consequences for Israel disobeying God's words and His commands. They were things like famine, drought, which means no rain, and their crops failing. And it's important for crops to do well because the Israelites depend on getting their food by farming. So what are some other curses that we learned about in our lesson? Can you shout out a few? That's some great listening, everyone. Now, in these curses, although they sound scary and awful, and why would a loving God send such horrible things to His people? God does not send curses because He's mean or He just likes to punish people. But usually when He sends these curses, it's a warning, and He wants Israel to turn away from idols, to turn away from false worship and disobedience. He wants them to turn away from these things and come back to Him. He wants people to feel repentant and sorry for their sins and to come to God and ask for forgiveness. And this is the reason why God warned them. If you don't obey my commands, then these curses will come upon you. Now, on the other hand, if you obey, God promised blessings upon them. So now let's talk about the blessings that God promised them. Now, what are some of the blessings that God had promised that we learned about in our lesson? Can you shout some of those out? Great job, everyone. Those are some good blessings that you guys remembered. And they are things like victory over their enemies, having great crops, rain, having plenty of food, everyone being healthy. Now, those are some of the blessings that God had talked about through Moses. Now, should we only obey God because we want these blessings? I think if you were to obey your mommy and daddy just so that they will buy you whatever toy you want or take you to these fun places that you want to go to, if those were your only motivations, I'm not sure how mommy and daddy would feel. They might feel a little hurt that you only want things from them. So that's not our motivation for obeying, is it? We obey our mommy and daddy because we love them. We love to obey them because we want them to be pleased and happy, and we want them to just really enjoy being with us, right? That should be our motivation. So it's the same thing with God. Obedience does not come from wanting blessings from God and wanting things from God, because that's just idol worship, right? Wanting those things and nice things and being happy and being healthy, that's the fruit of being obedient, not the main thing that we are desiring, right? So I'm going to show you a little diagram that I'm going to draw, and I want you guys to follow along as I show and explain. It's important for trees to have strong roots that are firmly planted in the ground so that they're not easily shaken when strong winds come. And so it's very similar for us as children of God that we have good roots. And at the root of everything for us is love and faith. And our obedience is rooted in love and faith towards God. So this allows for our tree to grow. So when we are obedient to God and we follow His commands and we follow His will, we grow in our obedience, just like a tree. And we start growing lush, beautiful green leaves. And we grow strong branches. So we're going to grow lots of strong branches. And finally, because of our good roots, founded upon love and faith towards God, our obedience leads us to grow fruit. And these fruit is what God told Moses about to the Israelites, and these are blessings from Him. I'm going to show you another illustration. I'm going to draw this fruit, and we're going to take a closer look at this fruit. Now pretend that I cut it open. So use your imagination. I'm going to cut it open. Now when you cut the fruit open in half, you'll see seeds. These seeds represent salvation. Just like the fruit cannot exist without first growing from a seed, without salvation, there is no obedience. Obedience is the fruit that grows from salvation. It can't produce salvation on its own. So we need the seeds of salvation before we have the desire to obey God. And this desire is founded in the love and faith towards God that I talked about in our earlier illustration. Right now, you and I were living through a very challenging, a very different time where we're not doing things that we used to do. We aren't able to see our friends. We aren't able to hug people that we love, and we're not able to fellowship and even meet for worship in our old Sunday school room. Now, this might seem like a curse, right? But I feel like it's been a blessing. Now for me, it's been such a blessing to be able to spend a lot of time with my family, especially with my kids. I've been able to spend a lot of time playing with them and doing a lot of things that I normally don't always get to do all the time. So I got to see things like, I didn't know that Darren could be a Monopoly champion. Our family has been playing a lot of Monopoly, and the first time he played, he won. He was great. And I didn't know my older son Nolan was so good at basketball. He's been playing at school, and I didn't know that he knew how to play so well. So there was a time recently where him and his daddy played horse, and he won. So it's been such a blessing to be able to see my kids and see what they've been doing at school and learning at school and seeing them at home. So it's been a very big blessing. So after this lesson review, you could take some time with your family and maybe you can share with them how this time has been a blessing for you. And you can tell your mommy and daddy and your siblings how this time where you've been staying at home and spending extra time with your family, how that has been a blessing for you. So I hope that this review has been helpful in learning and remembering the difference about disobedience and obedience, why we obey and why we should obey, what the motivation is. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.